All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me here. We'll go ahead and get started. If you got questions, go ahead and post them. It's going to be below the video. If you are on a mobile device, if you're on a laptop, desktop computer, something like that, it's going to be a while ago. I don't know if it was late last night, early this morning. So if you were happen to be the reason why I do that is I just want to answer questions for people who I think are here waiting to see their question get answered. If someone's posted their question on Saturday, odds are they're not here waiting to see their question get answered. So that's why I do that. Just a heads up if you're new to office hours. So like I said, I will start here with Frank C. So Frank C says, Q, what do you do with your hands after the straight line release? Should the right hand roll over the left? Can you show a demo? It certainly can. Typically it will. So when we're talking about the straight line release, we're talking about where this club is passing in front of the hands, right? So typically from there, you'll see the right hand kind of overtake and you'll kind of go like that. That's typically what you see, but not always. There's going to be some players like a Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka, who are more, they're kind of under and it still stays under and then it doesn't roll over until later. It just kind of depends on, what's happening at impact. So if you're someone who's struggling to close the club face at impact, it's not likely going to be a good thing after the straight line release to feel like the right hand's kind of staying underneath for a right-handed player, because that's typically going to result in a more open club face as you're going through contact. Now, if you're struggling with closing the face, it may be beneficial for you to feel like in your straight line release that the right hand's really rolling over the lead hand as you're coming through. So it really just depends on what's going on at contact, what you're trying to go for and what's going on before you come into contact. Maybe you're someone who's got this face already pretty square and you're kind of keeping it square all the way through. And you could be a person that's really trying to close the face as you're coming through. There's no right or wrong way, but typically what you're going to see is that hand rolling over. So you really just want to let the momentum of the club kind of go over the way that it wants to. But yeah, once the release is really just letting the club pass in front of the hands. As far as what the hands are doing after that is you're just letting the momentum of the club continue to come all the way around. So let's go to the next one here. So Louis V says, hey Q, how can the lie of an iron affect my shots? Well, basically if we're talking about the lie angle, I assume that's what you're talking about. So clubs have a lie angle. So basically what that is just the angle between the sole of the club and the shaft of the club. So if I have my angle finder here and I put this on here, and let's say I had this club, I was coming in and I had the handle high, right? Well, you can see if I have a higher handle, that face is going to be more open. And let's say I come in and I have the handle lower, you can see the face is more close. So that's how the lie angle affects things. If you have something set up to where, let's say you have the club set up to be 2 degrees upright. Maybe you're someone who kind of comes into contact and you stand up a little bit with a higher handle. Well, if you have the club a little bit 2 degrees upright, it may help you to square up the face a little bit better and get the club and get the sole of the club more flush to the turf, allowing you. So if you imagine, if I'm someone who comes into contact, I stand up a little bit, and I get the handle a little bit high, I could maybe benefit from having a club that's a little bit more upright, because let's say I was crazy upright. I was kind of like that, straight up and down. Well, look at what's contacting the turf. It's only my toe. It raises the sweet spot of the club. So if I were to get that to be more upright, well, then I could get the whole sole on the club, or the whole sole of the club on the turf, and I can get the sweet spot of the ball on. So that's really how it affects it. Is if you're coming in with really low or really high, you're going to be having a harder time getting it in the sweet spot if the club isn't flush to the ground. Now, typically, most club fitters aren't going to go more than 2 degrees upright. Because really, if you're more than 2 degrees upright, that's something you need to work on in your swing, right? That's something that's not a club issue. That's more of your swing issue. You're probably early extension, flipping the club and things like that. And you need to work on getting that. You don't want to get your clubs fitted to necessarily mask a swing flaw, because then when you improve that swing flaw, now you're going to have that swing flaw. Now you're going to have the club that's going to be way too upright for you. You're going to end up with the toe way up out of the ground if you end up fixing that issue. All right, so let's keep moving through here. So we have another question here. It says, irons have 3 to 4 degrees toe down. Do you think this could be causing shots to fly right, which appeared often yesterday? So if you have it, meaning it's 3 to 4 degrees toe down, that means that you've got a more upright. Actually, toe down would be more flat. So I mean, it could, but typically what happens is we adapt to our equipment, right? So, you can be given a club that's 3 or 4 degrees toe down, and maybe you hit the ball right today, but then you're going to adapt to it and you're going to start getting the face more closed. So I'd be looking at, it could be 3 or 4 degrees down, but if it's 3 or 4 degrees down and you're coming in flush with the turf, that's what should be happening. You could just be leaving the face open. So it really just depends on, are you coming in to contact, right? So you're coming into contact. I guess I'm confused. Are you saying that your clubs are 3 or 4 degrees down? You're saying that you're coming in and your contact is 3 or 4 degrees down. Yeah. So if you're coming into contact, that means that you're probably coming in with some early extension through contact, right? It's probably standing up, getting the handle high. So that can cause the ball to go a little bit more to the right. So what I'd be working on is probably the move. Because most of the time, the reason why people get that toe down is because they're steep initially. So they're like this. They got to get the club back on plane, so they stand up. Then they get the handle high, the toe down, which can open the face a little bit. But typically, people adapt. They get the face. They realize, okay, well, the ball's starting to the right, so they start rolling over the hands more, doing other things, releasing the club earlier to square up the face. So really, just depends on what's going on in your swing. But I'd look at the stop early extension course and the move course to get you shallow out the club so you can stay in your posture and get that handle lower as you're coming into contact. So Rick S. says, watch Clay's vid on power moves and was able to hit solid shots like never before. Question is, the move doesn't complete the finish of the club after the square face release. I can finish around toward third base and it's a draw. But to keep it straight consistently has its challenges. Is there any focus pointers you can suggest to allow the ball to travel down the target line consistently? I guess I'm not familiar with what video you're talking about. Power moves. Sorry, I don't have all the videos memorized on the website. Unfortunately, I used to when we had about 200 videos on the website, but now we've got probably 500 or more videos on the website. Unfortunately, I don't have them all memorized. So I'm not sure exactly what video you're talking about or exactly what your question is. The move doesn't complete the finish of the club after the square face early. I can finish around. I'm not sure what you mean. It doesn't complete the finish of the club after the square face early. Sorry, Rick. I don't know exactly what you're asking. I wish I could help you, but I honestly don't know what you're asking. You try asking in a different way. Maybe I can try to help. I'm not really sure exactly what you mean that it doesn't complete the finish after the square face early. Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that. So Jason M says, hi Q, I've really gotten a lot from all the TSG courses, including the Ball Strikers Masterclass. The 20-minute distance fix. I'm still struggling with the club face, with a club face strike slightly toward the toe, even though I swing into out. I'm not coming over the top. What are your thoughts on ways to correct? I've tried the extremes by trying to deliberately hit the hosel and toe. Thanks. So what I would be trying to do is I'd be trying to hit every single shot off the heel. Really, what golf is just adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want, right? So right now, you're trying to hit the ball in the center of the face, but the strikes are in the toe. So what you need to feel like is happening is you need to feel like you're hitting it off the hosel, and you need to do it every single time until you actually start hitting it off the heel. And then at that point, I would start easing off of it. Because all you're trying to do is kind of calibrate what you're doing. And you may be saying, I've tried that, but really what it comes down to is you didn't really. I get this all the time where people are like, well, I can't do that. Well, you absolutely can do it. It's just a matter of actually doing it. So imagine I told you to set up to this golf ball, and I said, I want you to set up to this golf ball, and I want you to completely miss it to the inside. Do you think you could do that? Absolutely, you could do that. And if I told you to set up to this golf ball and miss out here, could you do that? Yes, you certainly could do that. So it's no different than going here or there. It's just it would actually be easier to make it go there than to go way out here, right? So it's just a matter of getting at it. I think the reason why you may be having trouble with it is that it's uncomfortable. And trust me, I get it. It is. It's uncomfortable to try to hit a bad shot to hit a good shot. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to adjust your feel to get the desired result that you want. So that's all we're trying to do here. So what I would try to do is I would literally try to hit this ball off the hosel, and I'd do everything you could in order to be able to do that. Just a second. So, and I would do that on every single shot. And then once you actually, if you still hit it on the toe, you need to exaggerate even more. You may need to feel like you're setting up to this golf ball and that you're missing it completely. That's what you may need to feel like to make it happen. So exaggerate as much as you need to, get out of your comfort zone. And that's really the best advice I can give you. There's nothing, that's really what it comes down to, is just adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. Some feelings that may be going on, or some things, it's possible you could be standing way too far away from the golf ball, making it really difficult. And if that is the case, generally you want to have about a fist between your thighs and the butt end of the club. That's typically going to be a good place to be, right? So if you're way out here like this, sure, that's going to make it more difficult to get the club way out there. So if that's what's going on, then sure, stand a little bit closer to the golf ball, but more than likely, I don't think that's the case. So that's what I'd be looking at, is really just trying to really exaggerate your feel to get the desired result. And then once you actually start hitting the ball off the heel consistently, then you can ease off of that. A big mistake that a lot of people make is they'll set up, they're hitting it off the toe, and they try to hit it off the heel, and they get one ball in the center of the face, and then all of a sudden they go back to trying to hit it in the center of the face again. And if you do that, you're just going to go back to doing what you're doing before. You have to continually think about hitting it in the heel until you actually start matching, until feel becomes real, right? Once feel becomes real, then you can go back to trying to hit it in the center of the face. So John C. says, Clay indicates that swinging from the inside and rotating through with the body may result in some thin shots. Not necessarily. So what is the cause of this? Also, I seem to be able to hit the driver a lot better, but my irons doing the same move has been inconsistent at best. So let me read that again. Clay indicates that swinging from the inside and rotating through with the body may result in some thin shots. Not necessarily. If you're swinging more from the inside, you're coming in more shallow. If you swing way too much from the inside, you're going to get some thin shots, because you're going to be swinging. Your club's basically going to be bottoming out before the golf ball. So imagine if I swing way too much from the inside, way in here, my club's going to be bottoming out, somewhere in this area, and then probably working up into the golf ball a little bit, causing some thin shots. So that's what could cause a thin shot. But it doesn't necessarily, swinging a little bit from the inside is not going to cause thin shots. If you're getting thin shots, that probably be from other reasons, like early release. Typically, that's what causes the thin shots, is an early release. Now, you mentioned that you seem to be able to hit your driver a lot better, but irons doing the same move has been inconsistent. So it sounds like to me you're probably early releasing with the driver because there's no ground in the way. The ball is elevated. You can let the club bottom out. There's no ground contact. You can get away with in early release, but with the irons, it's a lot harder to get away with that early release because that ground is in the way. We have to make ball first contact. We have to hit down on the golf ball a little bit. So it'd be hard to say without seeing your swing to know exactly what's going on. But it really just depends on what's going on. But I would say you're most likely early releasing. So I'd look at your swing on video and see what's going on. And if you're early releasing the club, meaning that you're releasing this club basically at the golf ball or a little bit after the golf ball instead of out in front like we see the better players doing, then you're probably going to want to work on the straight line release course or the courses leading up to that, which is the top speed golf system. So most likely an early release is causing your thin shots there. So Chuck P says, what would be a good maintenance practice routine? That's a good question. So it's hard to say. I don't think it's going to be the same for everybody. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. I would say really just depends on how much because your play you can almost maintain your current level of play without practicing any if you're playing a lot, right? It really just depends on what balance you have between practice and playing and how much you're playing and things like that. If you're only playing once a week, I would say you probably need to get a couple hours of practice in a week to kind of maintain. It's possible. I mean, a lot of times, I know a lot of guys that play once a week and they don't ever get any better. So honestly, if you're looking for a maintenance practice routine, you may not even need to practice at all. You may just need to play once a week for the most part. But it really just depends. Not everybody's going to be the same. But yeah, if you're just looking to maintain your current skill level, probably playing once a week is all you need. If you're playing once a month and you want to maintain your skill level, you probably need to get some sort of practice in every week, once a week, I would say, an hour or two of practice. Just guessing. That's a good question. I've never really had anyone ask me what they would need to do to maintenance. Usually people are always trying to get better. So to get better, you definitely need to get some practice in there. I'd say a few hours a week. If you're playing a lot, you can get better through playing, but it's hard to improve specific areas if you're just playing. But yeah, I would say playing once a week, you could probably maintain a skill level. You probably won't get any worse. If you do, it'd be not very much. So Dean P says, what is a good drill to keep your head down during impact? So we talked about this a little bit, early extension. It really just depends on why your head is coming up. The most common reason why I see people's head come up or is to have this early extension is from coming down steep in the transition. So if you're coming down steep in transition and then you've got to go like this to get the club on plane, that's going to be the move course. Getting this club shallowed out so that way you can stay in your posture and rotate through the ball. So if you want to go to the move course and start working through those drills, that would be select the house icon. That'll take you to the homepage. Scroll down the homepage. You'll see a list of the courses there and select the move. But that's usually the reason. It really just depends on why your head's coming up, but the move is going to be the main reason why, and the drills in that course will help you to stop doing that. So Louis V says, regarding the spine, it does move in a lateral direction, but stays at the same tilt angle. Is that correct? No, it's not quite correct. I would say, so at address, you're going to be looking at about 6 to 8 degrees of tilt away. As you go up to the top of the swing, it can move a little bit laterally this way. It usually doesn't very much, not more than an inch or two. If you're really moving laterally this way, that'd be too much. But generally, what I like to do, for looking at address into the top of the swing, what I like to do is I like to draw 2 lines outside of your torso. So if you look at yourself on video, and I try to use a tripod or something like that, so the camera's not moving around anywhere. But basically, you set up with two lines across your torso. So those 2 lines will be about 6 to 8 degrees angled away. So if you're like this, right? If I do 2 lines across my torso here, you're going to see I'm straight up and down. I don't want to be straight up and down. I want to be a little bit angled away. This is what we talk about in the Top Speed Golf System, the Stable Fluid Spine course. So nice and angled away. As I go up to the top, I want to see the overall angle of my body be about the same. So up to the top of the swing, we want that angle to be, that tilt of the body to be about the same. And I want to be either centered between those lines or a little bit into the trail line. I don't mind my being a little bit into the trail line at the top of the swing. That's fine. As you're loading up, there can be some momentum that initially moves you away from the target a little bit. So it can move a little bit to the trail side in the backswing. And the downswing, it will move forward as you get your weight shift moving forward. It will move forward and will also get more angled away as you come into contact. Typically, your best players out there are going to have their spine angle 18 to 25 degrees angled away from the target. So if you look here, I'm going up to the top. Here I am at address, angled away. If I go up to the top, you can see I'm angled away. And then as I come into contact, I'm going to move forward a little bit. My body is going to be opening up. My spine is going to get more angled away as I come into contact. If you look at here, I'm going to be in that 18 to 25 degree angled away range. And then from there, I go into the full finish. So that's from the body opening up and getting a little bit more, and getting that lateral shift and getting a little bit more angled away. And that's in level 3 of the Stable Fluid Spine course. If you folks are wanting to work on the Stable Fluid Spine, this is really the key foundation to a good golf swing. I would be going to the instruction tab, select the Top Speed Golf System, select the Stable Fluid Spine. But hopefully that clears up any questions about the Stable Fluid Spine. So Chester M says, hi Q, in setting up for a longer drive over water, what will take a solid hit and is right at the edge of my ability to carry? I am at it confused about the setup. Somewhere in one of Clay's videos, it says drop the trail foot back a little. And another, I think it says to flare out the trail foot, assuming a square setup. Does back mean further away from the target line? Or same as flaring it out? So it could be both. So I guess you're talking about trying to swing a little bit more from the inside, hitting a little bit more up on the golf ball, getting a little bit more turn away from the golf ball. So if you imagine, I'll set this down, and this can be my target line. Right? So if this is my target line, this would be like a normal square stance, right? Well, if I'm trying to, get a little bit more power, I can turn my body away from the ball a little bit more. I can also get this club to work more from the inside and hit a little bit more up on the golf ball. That might be able to help me to carry it a little bit more. So if this is my normal stance, squared up to the target line, what you can do, you can flare this out a little bit, and then you can see when I flare the foot out, it does bring my toe back a little bit, but my heel really hasn't moved. And then I can just drop this foot back a little bit. And what that does is that allows me, number one, if I flare my foot out, it helps me to free up my hips a little bit more, which can help me to turn my shoulders a little bit more. And then also dropping the heel back allows me to turn my hips a little more and turn my shoulders a little bit more. So I'm able to get this club head further away from the golf ball. And the more space and time you can create, typically the more speed that you can create at contact. And now also what that helps me do is it helps me to swing this club from the inside and hit a little bit more up on the golf ball. So if I can hit up on the golf ball, that can allow me to have a higher launch and lower spinning drive, which will carry a little bit further. So if you add in the added speed that I'll hopefully get from creating more space, to create ball speed, and you add that in with swinging a little bit from the inside and hitting a little bit more up on the golf ball, that can get you, overall more distance and carries. So yeah, you can do both. You can flare it out. You can do one of them or both of them. So just setting, if I just have my normal stance and I set the foot back, that's going to help me to turn my hips back a little bit more. If I flare it out, it's going to help me to turn my hips back even more. Turning that hip, or you can even just flare it out at address, right? And that can help me to turn my hips. It won't necessarily help me to swing more from the inside, but it can help me to turn my hips a little bit more. So you can do both. They can help you, but yeah, give it a try and see if that helps you to get that carry that you need. So Rick S says, I'm listening in. See my question. Thanks. So let me go back. I'm pretty sure I haven't skipped any questions. Oh yeah, so that was the one that I wasn't sure on. Yeah, so I don't. If I skip your question, it's not on purpose, but I did go to that question, and I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking. So Rick, if you wouldn't mind asking in a different way, I'll be happy to help. But I'm not sure what you mean by what you put in there. How you're not able to finish the swing with squaring the face early. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. So Darren S says, on the downswing, should you feel like you squat to get the hands lower on the downswing if you early extend with high hands? Yeah, so there's definitely going to be a flexing of the legs. So typically people who early extend, when they start, they get up here, and then when they start the downswing, the hips go like this, right? So there's no really flexing of the legs. The legs stay pretty straight, and then the hips kind of go like this, right? And we're swinging down. So what you're going to see with people who shallow out the club is you're going to see initially, you're going to see a squatting. They're going to see the legs, the knees kind of move apart from each other. You're going to see some flex in the legs because that allows you to rotate the body as you come into contact. If your legs are straight, it's going to be very difficult. If you imagine if I have my legs like this pretty straight, I can rotate my hips, but if I have a little bit of flex in my legs, it's a lot easier and I can really grip and get into the ground. So that's what we're wanting to do. And the other thing is that if I have that flex in my legs and I'm able to get the handle lower, I can get some forward shaft lean. I can come into contact here and I can get some forward shaft lean at contact. Whereas if my legs are straight, right, I'm not going to be able to it's going to be hard for me to get down here to the golf ball without releasing the club early and having that early extension. So absolutely, yes, we're going to be flexing those legs. Typically, when this arm gets to parallel in the downswing, so when we get to right here, these legs are flexed and the hips are back to square. That's typically what you're going to see right there. So back to square, and then I'm able to turn into the golf ball and get into a good position there at impact. So Joseph W says, can you comment about grip pressure and what breathing should be like? I'm thinking holding my breath adds tenseness. Better to keep breathing normally. Asking for a friend. Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath. I'll be honest with you. I do not think about the way that I breathe when I swing. I wouldn't be trying to hold my breath when I swing. Typically, you'll exhale and then you'll take the swing. But like I said, I don't think about how I'm breathing when I'm swinging. So I don't necessarily recommend holding your breath. As far as grip pressure throughout the swing, basically the easiest way that I can tell you as far as grip pressure goes is that you hold the club with enough pressure that you can control it, but not so much pressure that you can't move, right? So if you imagine if I were to take this club and grip it as hard as I possibly could, well, I can't really move very well. Whereas if I held this club with hardly any grip pressure, well, now it's kind of moving around in my hand and I don't have control of it. So there's this I've heard this before. A lot of you probably heard this instruction where they say you want to hold the club like a baby bird or like a tube of toothpaste. You don't want to squeeze the toothpaste out of there, and that can work like at address. I don't need like hardly any pressure in this club at address to be able to do that. But as the swing is starting, I need to be able to put more force into this handle to be able to hold on to it and control it. If I get it up here and I'm holding it like a baby bird, it's falling out of my hand, right? So as the speed increases in the swing, you have to put more pressure into the grip. And you'll do this intuitively, to hold on to the club. So, and I can prove this to you. Imagine if I was holding this club, I'd get with your buddy and I'd just hold this club out in front of you. I'd hold it really lightly, just as light as you need to kind of keep it right there, and have a friend come up and pull on this club. Intuitively, you will put more pressure into that club so that he doesn't pull it out of your hand. And that's the same thing that's happening in the golf swing. As you bring it up, you don't want to be tense, right? You want to be loose, but controlling the club. And then there's more speed that's built into it, you're going to be putting more pressure into the handle so that the club doesn't come flying out of your hand. So you want to put pressure into the club. It's not a thing where you hold it so lightly all the time. You hold it lightly enough to where you can move, but not so lightly that it's moving, that it comes out of your hand. And if you do that exercise with the buddy that I was talking about, or have your kid do it or grandkid or whatever, have them pull on it, and you will intuitively hold tighter on that club. And that's the same thing that happens in the golf swing. But you're not going to be able to, just to kind of break that down a little bit more, you're not going to be able to think like I could go through the swing and tell you, okay, at address, if we're talking about like out of 10, a 1 being the lightest pressure and 10 being the most pressure. You're not going to be able to think throughout the swing. Okay, I'm at a 2 out of 10, now 3, 4, 5, 6. You're not going to be able to think and feel. And it's also, not both hands are going to be having the same pressure. So you're not going to, the swing is happening too fast. You can't think about how you're putting pressure. It has to be an intuitive thing. And if you do that exercise, you're going to understand, okay, I get it. That's how I'm going to be able to do it intuitively. You're going to know, if you can't feel the club head at all, there's a good chance that you're just putting way too much pressure into it. So I try to feel like you're maybe loosening that pressure a little bit so that you can feel the club head. That's really what I would try to feel like. What you can do is you can take the club and kind of just let it kind of go like this, and you can feel how much pressure you need to put into it to not let it go flying out of your hands. And you can really loosen the grip, and then you can realize, okay, the club's slipping out of my hands. And then you can also hold on to it tightly, and you can see it's not really freely. It might be hard to tell on video, but it's not. I'm manipulating this. Like I'm not letting the momentum of the club. So that's what you kind of want to feel, is that the momentum of the club, and then you can take this to longer and longer, and you'll get a sense and feel for how much pressure you need to be putting into it during the swing. All right, so Patrick Y says, I stub a few chips when I was in the rough and close to the green. The pin was close. What is a good drill to improve my touch with these short chips? Well, in the rough, it's going to be tough. Really, what I'd be doing in the rough, if it's a short pitch from the rough, or a short chip from the rough, you need to have some loft. So I would use your highest lofted wedge. So like a 60 degree would be good. I carry a 58 degree myself. And then I would even open the face a little bit, about 15 degrees. And then I would play the ball a little bit further back in the stance. So more, typically with a chip, or pitch, you're going to have the ball more in the middle of your stance. On this, I want you to have it out of the rough. I want you to have it a little bit further back in your stance. And the reasoning is that I want to be able to get ball first contact. The reason why you're stubbing these, or most likely the reason why you're stubbing these, is that the club's probably getting caught up in the grass. It's getting eaten up. You need to steepen this angle of attack so that you can get ball first contact. And having that ball a little bit more forward or a little bit more back in your stance, excuse me, is going to allow you to hit more down on the ball. So weight forward, high loft, face a little bit open, ball back in the stance a little bit. The next piece is you want to be a little bit more wristy. And again, what that does, typically with the chip, it's more of just like a pivot. You can come in nice and shallow because that's very high percentage shot if it's in the short grass. But if you're in the rough, that rough's going to eat that club up. You're not going to be able to come in shallow. So putting the ball further back in your stance and hinging the wrists a little bit more and kind of feeling like you're chopping down in it is going to be the best bet. So it's going to be weight forward, ball back in the stance, open face, high lofted club. I'm going to hinge a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of let the club kind of drop down on it. And that's a pretty big swing. You can slow that down a little bit. If it's a really short, let's say I'm just trying to hit it, let's say I'm 8 feet off the green here. Basically the green is my door there, and I'm just trying to carry it barely on there. So what I'm trying to do, I'd be just kind of doing, it'd be just a little bit when I'm going like that. So it'd be kind of like this. So you can see I just barely carried it to the door. It would have got on the green and rolled. Now, if you're really tight, if there's not, let's say there's only 2 paces there, there's 6 feet, it's going to be really difficult to get it close. Like you may even need to land it in the fringe. And again, you're kind of flirting with disaster a little bit if you do that. So definitely be something to practice, kind of find your landing spot. But the shot's not going to have a lot of spin on it because, even though we're trying our hardest to make ball first contact, because of the way that you're hitting this, it's just going to be really, because of it being in the rough, it's going to be hard to get spin on it. And it's going to be hard to make it get up in the air as well. So, to hit a high one, you can try to hit a flop, kind of a flop type shot, play it a little bit more forward, a little bit more open face, and really try to tear through it and get the ball to come out higher. But that's even a higher degree of difficulty kind of shot. So not really something I recommend typically unless you just absolutely have to. But use a little bit of loft, get that ball back in the stance, kind of use the wrists a little bit more, and just let it kind of pop out of there. You're going to be in good shape. You're at least going to give yourself a chance to make your par putt for sure. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend, or I wouldn't necessarily expect to have a lot of touch on these shots. The way you develop touch on those shots is just to practice that shot, right? It's really just to practice it. Practice your landing spots. Go to the practice, your practice facility, and I would be hitting this shot to all, hopefully, your practice green has, or you can even put a tee in the ground, wherever, and you can practice these little pitch type or these little chip shots. You can go into all those different ones. That's the way to do it. You don't want to go out there and put like a bucket of balls down, like a pile of balls, and hit the same ball or the same shot to the same target every single time. You'll get a little bit better if you do that, but how you really get better is if you hit to that one, then you hit to another target, then you hit to another target, or you have a bunch of balls that are all around the green and you're going to all different targets. That would be even better because then you're not getting comfortable in one spot. You got to go to different spots. So that's what I would recommend doing is go out. The way you develop the touch is just develop the touch with the shot through repetition. That's really how you develop the touch with it. And then you'll get a feel for how the ball comes out and so on and so forth when you do that. All right, so Andy C says, after I make contact with my irons, it seems like I continue swinging down the line rather than to the left. I'm right-handed. How do I swing? Turn the left. So the way that you do it, well, one thing to keep in mind is that feel isn't always real. Feel is relative. So odds are you're really not swinging down the target line. You're actually probably swinging around to the left. But the way to feel that, you're probably just swinging a lot into out would be my guess, is that you're swinging out into out quite a bit. So I look at your swing on video and see what your path is like. If you're swinging into out, your path is going to be going more down the target line, then it's going to be coming to the left. If you're swinging more out to in, out to in meaning this way, you're going to be swinging more to the left through contact. So it just depends on what your ball flight normally is. It's not necessarily a bad thing to be having going down the target line. If you like to, it's just a feel. You're going to feel like you're going more down the target line if you normally hit a draw. If you normally hit a fade, you're probably going to feel like you're going more to the left. But again, feel is relative, and what you're talking about isn't necessarily a bad thing, like I said. So it's hard to say without seeing your swing. I need to see your swing before I give you any kind of advice on what you need to feel through contact or what you need to do through contact. But if you give me a little bit more information on what's going on, I might be able to help you. Louis V says, would you recommend Golf Tech to fit clubs? I mean, I'm indifferent. I don't know. I have never been there to get fitted for clubs, so I'm not really sure. I couldn't really tell you. I will say, if you want my recommendation for going to get fit for clubs, I would say Club Champion would be the best. I don't have any affiliation with them, but I've been to them several times. I mean, I'm sure Golf Tech is fine. I mean, I'm not really sure. I wish I could tell you that Golf Tech's the place to go, but I just don't know. But I know that Club Champion is really good. I've been there a few times to get fitted for certain things myself. So I can definitely recommend them. They're typically located in major cities across the country. I'd actually, I go to their website and try to get on their mailing list. They usually do a Black Friday deal. Maybe not with, COVID and stuff going on, but they typically do some sort of Black Friday type of, Thanksgiving sale type of thing. So, like I said, they're located in major cities all over the country. They're going to get you on TrackMan. I don't know if Golf Tech has. I'm pretty sure Golf Tech doesn't have. They have their own kind of a thing, but which I'm sure it's fine. I mean, basically, if you want a good fitting, you need to. I would go somewhere that has a launch monitor, and they're going to have you hit different clubs, different heads, different shafts, different everything to get fitted. So that's what I'd be looking at doing. I think Golf Tech has. I've honestly never been to a Golf Tech, so I couldn't tell you, but I'm pretty sure they have some sort of launch monitor. I don't think it's TrackMan. I think they have kind of their own sort of thing. I could be wrong about that, but as long as they're getting you on a monitor and they obviously, if they know what they're doing, which I would hope that they do, they can get you in the right fit. But I know Club Champion is good. So if you want my recommendation, I can't recommend Golf Tech just because I don't have any experience with them. But I can recommend Club Champion. I've been to the one here in Orlando. I've been to the one, or there's two in Chicago. I've been to one of those in Chicago, and it was very good. So those would be the places I recommend. But they're, like I said, they're located in major cities all over the country, and I have no affiliation with them, by the way. That's just based on my own experience. I'm not getting paid by them or anything. But hey, if Club Champion wants to pay me for saying they're great, I'll gladly do it too, because I know that they're good stuff over there. So John S. says, Clay talks about a shallow swing in the chipping section with some shaft lean at dress. Is there a thought or drill to ensure a shallow strike for short game shots? Yes, it's in that first video in the chipping section where Clay goes over all the technique. The biggest thing there is for if you're going, like I said, for a typical chip shot that you're hitting out of the fairway, right? So this would not be in the rough. We just talked about a little bit about how you would do it out of the rough. So this would be out of the fairway. The biggest issue I see with people who put the ball too far back in the stance. If you're in the rough, yeah, that's fine to put the ball back in the stance so you can come down a little bit more steeply on it. But that's not going to be a very high percentage play. You need to do that out of the rough to Obviously it's going to be more difficult out of the rough, but you need to do that out of the rough to be able to get more ball first contact. But in the fairway, we want to come in more level with the turf, and that's basically playing the ball in the middle of your stance. And really, you want to feel like your arms are kind of staying long the whole time, right? So there's not a lot of, your arms stay pretty long, and you just kind of pivot back and through. That's really going to allow you to come in nice and shallow there. Now, if we get into where it's longer chips, you can have a little bit of a hinge in there, but you still want to feel like your arms are long and you're pivoting through. So arms are long and you're pivoting through. That's how you come in nice and shallow, because you're using your pivot. If you want to feel like your chest is kind of turning and the club's kind of, and your arms are long and you're pivoting through with the hips. And I kind of hit the ball there, but that's basically what you want to feel like when you're chipping. What I often see people do is they get the ball back in the stance, so the ball's back in here and they're all arms, right? So the ball's back in the stance, and then they're kind of lifting the club up like this and chopping down and having trouble with it. Almost caught it. So they're going to be chopping down, stubbing it, and then they end up chunking a few. So what they do is they kind of stand up, and I can't even do it without hardly like missing it. But then they skull it over the green. Whereas if you do it like this, or you get the ball more in the middle of your stance, you can even open your body a little bit. That's what I like to do. I like to pre-open the hips a little bit. Feet close together makes it easier to pivot. This isn't a real long shot, so we don't need that wide stance for power. And I just kind of feel the arm staying long, and you're just pivoting. And you can see I can just do that all day long and just barely brush the turf. And you're just going to you're never really opening the face or closing the face. You're really just pivoting back and forth here. And you can be really, really good with your chipping, very consistent with your chipping when you do that. So that'd be the technique. That's the technique that Clay talks about in the chipping mastery course. If you go there, if you want to go to the chipping mastery course and see where Clay talks about this stuff, if you click the house icon, that'll take you to the homepage. If you scroll down the homepage, you'll see a list of all the courses there. You can do the chipping mastery course. If you're looking for kind of the wedge game, we have the wedge system as well that you can work through to get that working a little bit better. Rick S says it was about the hatchet move. Yeah, sorry, Rick, I'm not familiar with what you're asking. Hatchet move. Yeah, sorry, I don't know that one, buddy. I'm sorry. So Lauren R says, I've been watching the videos and I've gotten a bit confused. In the eliminate hip pain video, it suggests pushing off the front foot. Am I supposed to push off of my front and back feet at the same time? Hip pain video. Man, it gets tough because you guys are referring videos, and I don't have all the videos memorized on the website, 500 videos. If I remember correctly, I'm guessing that you're talking about the hip pain video in the compression line course. So where you're pushing off with your feet is in the backswing. You're going to be almost like I'm a baseball pitcher, right? So I'm pushing off with my trail foot, and then I drive off my lead foot. That's kind of the same thing in the golf swing. I'm pushing with my trail foot, and then I'm getting to my lead side, and then I'm pushing with my lead foot to rotate my hip back out of the way. So you're pushing to rotate your hip back that way in the backswing, and then in the downswing, you get your weight shift, right? And then you're pushing with your left leg to push your hip back out of the way. Where if you get hip pain, you're more than likely sliding your hips too far forward, right? And then kind of jumping up like this as you're coming through contact. And the hip pain comes from jamming up your hips typically. It's typically where you get that pain kind of right in there in that area. And that's from sliding the hips forward like this. So we want to push off into the trail side in the backswing. We want to get a little bit of lateral shift. We keep the hip inside the ankle. So if you look, you go vertically from my ankle, my hip is inside that, and you get that your leg kind of angled in like this, and that allows you to push and rotate the body open. If your femur here, which is your thigh bone, if that gets vertical, right, you're not going to be able to push back very much. It's going to be very, very difficult to do that. So you want to make sure that as you're getting to your lead side, that femur is angled in toward your body, so that way you can rotate in the impact. And that's what we talk about in that video. I believe the video you're talking about is the one where you put the alignment stick outside of your hip to make sure that you don't pass in front there. You're keeping that behind there so you can push back on it. So William F says, I have 3 basic shots with irons, a pull left, a push right, and a straight shot, all with no divots. My assumption is that all may be due to poor weight shift. Could be. Left goes left because shoulders spin and no lower body. Right goes right because no lower body and arms throw at ball. And straight goes straight because you happen to get on path. Does this sound like lower body weight shift problems? It could be. It's hard to say without seeing your swing. I mean, there's a million things that could be going on there. But basically, if you don't shift your weight, right, then a lot of times what happens is you'll swing over the top, and that's where the pull comes from. And then you could also shift your weight and then swing too much from the inside and have the face open. That can be the push out to the right. And you could have the in-between where you shift your weight the right amount, right? And your swing on plane, and you get ball first contact. So like I said, it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but that it could be, a weight shift issue where you're either not shifting your weight, you're shifting your weight too much, or you're shifting your weight the right amount. So I'd be looking at your swing on video and to see what's going on there. Look at your compression line. Typically, if you're shifting your weight too much, your compression line is going to be too far forward. Your spine angle is going to be too vertical. If you're hanging back, you're typically going to be swinging over the top. Your spine angle is going to be vertical. So I'd be looking at your spine angles. Get your spine angles in the right position, so that way you can get a good weight shift to your lead side and be in the right position to swing on plane. So Diane C says, if you're hitting the ball on an uphill lie, do you lean into the hill? No, I would go with the hill. So you always want to kind of adjust with the slope. So if I'm hitting uphill, right, I want to have my body more angled away. Like I'm going to be like this. I don't want to be more angled into the slope because you're going to be kind of chopping into it. Now, keep in mind that when you go with the slope, right, the ball is going to come out higher, right, because you're adding loft to the face, right? You want to swing with the slope. That's going to add some loft in the face. So the ball is probably going to go, it's going to go higher and it's going to go shorter usually. Now, for a downhill lie, it's kind of the same thing. I don't want to swing, still angled away because then I'll end up hitting the ground way before the golf ball. I want to swing with the slope. I want to swing down the slope with the slope. And when you do that, the ball is going to come out lower than it would before. So it may go a little bit further. So keep that in mind whenever you're working on these things. But yeah, go with the slope. Try to match your shoulders with the slope and swing with the slope and make the adjustments for the ball coming out high or low, depending on if you're on uphill or downhill lie. So Edward C says, been working hard on getting forward shaft lean, and my irons have been so much more consistent of late. Thanks. Any thoughts on why my driver may not be consistent? I can hit my 3-wood the same distance because I am better hitting off the deck, very low tee. Can't seem to transfer the same swing at the high tee for the big stick. So, it's hard to say without seeing your swing, but I would be trying to hit up on the golf ball. It sounds like you're trying to hit down on the golf ball. When you hit down on the golf ball, it's going to really lower your distance. So I'd be trying to stay behind the ball, play the ball more forward in your stance, stay behind the ball, and let the club work up into the golf ball. A good drill that you can do is you can make sure you have the ball forward. Make sure you're swinging from the inside and staying behind the golf ball. But if you have your ball, let's say you tee up the ball, 2 inches off the ground. So you tee up the ball 2 inches off the ground. What I would do is I take a tee and I put it in the ground 6 inches behind it and then a little bit to the inside of it. So if I'm hitting my ball straight this way, if this is my target line, and I have the ball on the target line, I would put that tee, about right in here, and I would only have it out of the ground about 1 inch. So if this one's teed up 2 inches, I would have just the tee sticking out of the ground about 1 inch. And I'd be trying to hit the tee and the ball, right? Because most likely what's going on is you're probably coming in maybe a little bit over the top. Maybe you have the ball too far back in your stance and you're swinging too level with the ball and you're adding a lot of spin and you're just not getting that good launch and compression on the ball. So I try to play a little bit more forward, try to hit that tee that's lower on the ground behind into the inside of it and let the club work up into the golf ball and stay behind the ball as you're doing it. So John E. says, at takeaway, I immediately hood the club. My ball striking is exceptional. Why? I mean, it sounds like because you square up the ball at contact. It doesn't, you can hood the club, you can open up the club. It doesn't matter what you do in the backswing as long as you get the club to impact well, right? So if I do this in the backswing, it just means I have to do it in the downswing. If I do this in the backswing, then there's, I actually kind of probably have to open the face a little bit as I come into contact because that's really closing the face if you're depending on how much you're hooding it. But yeah, you can do, it only matters how that club gets to impact. You're going to look on tour and you're going to see all kinds of different takeaways and things like that. And you're going to see a lot of exceptional ball strikers. So, it's completely fine to hood the club in the backswing as long as you're bringing it to impact. Now, if you're someone who's hooding the club in the backswing and you have trouble coming into contact with really closing the face too much, then we might try to change that a little bit because all your backswing is or all your takeaway is to set up a good downswing and a good impact. That's all it is. So everything's just trying to set up the next piece. And the better the setup is, usually the better the next piece is. But if you look at someone like a Matt Wolff, he brings the club way outside like this, and then he brings it up here, and then he shallows it out. For some players that wouldn't work, right? But for him, he makes it work. It helps him to set up his downswing the correct way. Like a Jim Furyk, kind of the same thing. If you look at like a J.B. Holmes, right? Look at like J.B. Holmes, he brings the club way inside, brings it up like this, and then shallows it out. Like his backswing isn't a detriment to his downswing. He's able to make a downswing. But if, let's say, that J.B. Holmes tried to do what Matt Wolff does, it probably wouldn't turn out very good. He probably wouldn't have any clue where the club is, and vice versa. If Matt Wolff was trying to bring the club way inside and shallow it from there, he's not used to how that all works to get it into impact. So he's probably not going to set him up for a good downswing. So that's really what it comes down to. Typically, I only change backswings if it's really hurting. So if it's setting something else. Typically what I see is we get up to the top of the swing and the club's in a position that makes it really difficult for you to have a good downswing. So basically I'll have people, most of the time, students are coming down steep in transition. So this club is like this, right? And a lot of times what I see is they're like this at the top. Well, if you're like this at the top and the momentum of the club's going that way, before you start down, well, that club's going to be like this at this point in the swing. And then from there, it's just going to be, you're typically going to stand up and flip or really shallow it out late, hit a snap hook and things like that. So a lot of times what I work on is let's get that club working more in line with the target and let's get the forces going that way right away. So that way we can get this club shallowed out right here and then turn into the golf ball. That's how you kind of set things up. So it really just, if you're an exceptional ball striker, odds are you've got things going on in your downswing or you're getting the club in a good position in the downswing to be able to get into a good position at impact. So yeah, it's completely fine to hood the club. I mean, you can have the club like this if you want, if you come into impact with a great impact position. I mean, and it works for you. If that's a pattern that works for you, then that's what works for you. But anyway, I apologize. Some of the questions I wasn't able to get to today. Mondays are typically a lot more busy, so I do apologize. Try to get your questions in early on Mondays for sure. So anyway, thanks everybody for joining me. I got to get going. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you all next time.